Wow, what a Wednesday. Going into Turkey Day tomorrow. IWM up, S&P's down, tech earnings not so good, good retail earnings. We're all over the map. And then where things really get shaken up at 8:30 with tons of economic data. Don't forget about the PCE coming out at 10 a.m. Lord Chico, Wedbush, covering the biotech sector. She'll join us at 8:35. Let's just get it started and call it Wild Wednesday.
The volatility right now is really incredible.
Wow, look at that consolidation on the upper right chart.
You know what we've seen this earnings season? Some of these expected moves get even more violent. This is why I have switched my strategy 10 years ago. And if you're chasing, you're in trouble.
All right, good morning, traders and investors. You don't want to see Urban Outfitters. You want to see the S&Ps making a new all-time closing high yesterday. That'll be our big number for the session. That was 6038.25. Buck pulling back here for the second day in a row, down 58 cents at 106.39. TLT on a rally, up 40 cents, 92.77. USO up 38 cents, 71.99. GLD up 219, 245.14. Silver, the laggard, SLV flat 27.78. Bitcoin bouncing back from yesterday's losses. That's up $2,470 at 94,400. Let me remove my charts. Let's bring in Triple D and CF, or add Triple D to the stage, and Christian Fromhertz here. And guys, if you were looking for an easy day here before Thanksgiving, that doesn't seem to be the case.
I think it's going to be a wild Wednesday. And the reason for that is you've got a lot of economic data coming out. Combine that with very thin holiday markets, and we could see some wild moves here today because a lot of traders not at their desk. A lot of traders take, an extra day or two here. Analysts are quiet here this morning because a lot of them are gone. So what that means is there's less liquidity out there. It means it could be thinner markets. With thinner markets equals, more just algorithmic moves, could be some wild moves here. So I'm anticipating some big moves here today despite the holiday trade. Christian, how are you?
Good morning, guys. Happy Thanksgiving Eve. It should be an interesting day. It's always a bit of lighter volume, especially as the day goes on. But yeah, they're jamming a whole bunch of economics into today, and we've got a lot of earnings. Interesting earnings reports that came out last night too. So I'm with you on things could get a little bit spicy today.
Yeah, all right, Spinner saying it's gonna be as wild as my hair. The hair indicator says yes, indeed. We always had the briefcase indicator from Greenspan. This is the hair indicator from Dennis, Triple D, and it looks wild, and it is going to be wild.
And I'm wearing my Turkey Trot shirt right here. 2015, one of my worst athletic performances in any sport ever. That's besides when I dropped out of the 2-mile when I was in 8th grade at the Bedford Relays. Way overdressed, overheated, maybe had a little bit too much to eat and drink the night before. And my sister, who's 3 years older than me, actually beat me in the 5K. And
are you running one tomorrow, Joel?
Hell no.
You're not running it? You're wearing the shirt. You're not going to run it?
I pumped some iron this morning. I got up early, pumped some iron because I wanted to be here early for the show. And I'm going to swim. My club is open tomorrow for swimming. So I'm going to swim and watch Lisa cook turkey and a bunch of other good stuff. But let's get right to the earnings. Let me add Smelly Deli to the screen, and Triple D exited the stock ahead of the. I hope you didn't keep a little piece, Dennis. But anyways,
no, I sold all my Dell. I sold all my Dell.
215 versus 205, but the street is emphasizing the earnings miss 24.37 versus 24.65. So they're not liking the revenue miss here. Dell pounded here in the pre-market. Talk about the trading action, Triple D.
I will, and I'll give you even specifics because it was kind of a little bit quieter night So I was like, I'm going to listen to this conference call because they didn't give the guidance yet. I was like, I'm going to wait for the guidance here. And I actually was waiting, and I took a small position just ahead of it because I thought, maybe, they were going to have decent guidance. I just kind of felt like it could. And then she starts talking and she goes, however. When she said, however, I'm like, oh my gosh, hit the sell button. I got to tell you, I don't know. I don't listen to conference calls that often, but on this call, it started selling off 5 seconds before she said, however. It was like somebody had a faster feed than the conference call. And maybe it's because I'm in Canada and I'm listening to and the latency issue. But I'm telling you, maybe it wasn't 5 seconds, but it was 3 seconds at least. It was down 2 points before she said, however. And what I mean is, she was like, saying, this is good, this is good, this is good. However. And I'm like, you never want to hear however. However, it will sell. So it didn't even matter after that. So I took a 2-point hit actually on my little long on Dell, my trying to be long and trying to be a hero. I bought at 132 and sold at 130. When you hear however, you just sell. So even though it's 2 points lower and then it continued to go lower, it's down at 124 here right now. So the guidance was not great. The quarter was fine, but we'll give you those numbers here right now. I just wanted to tell that trade before I give the numbers.
I gave the numbers, Triple D.
Good.
I did give the numbers. Christian, is this on your radar?
I think it's on the radar for more of just the AI trade, and we've seen Nvidia kind of that's been slowly grinding down and losing altitude, and I'm watching that near like the 50-day moving average 131, but you're watching this stock, and remember this reported last week and didn't have a good price reaction there. So and there's a couple other tech names too I know that we're gonna go over too, but it's just kind of there's air coming out of the balloon in terms of AI, I think, because Dell is one of those names, and if you look across some of the other names too, I mean, we know that the semis have not been doing very well at all. So I have to think that this is going to hurt that group too.
This is this market, and it is rotation, and Nvidia continues to leak here, trying desperately to hold on to the double bottom that just put it from the last 2 days, 35.67, 35.82. I think it's going to cave though. It's down. It's 35.27 pre-market, so just below that right now. It feels like we're going to cave here though, and it does feel exactly what Christian Fromhertz is talking about. It feels like value now, the value stocks, small caps, they kind of have taken, the lead here. And AI trade is getting forgotten, at least for a little while. It'll come back. But right now, forgotten. And this doesn't help it. When you see Dell down this much, it's an AI stock. Obviously, the servers. This is, an issue here for AI this morning. And what is AI's loss is the rest of the market's gain. Because, we've been seeing a lot of money rotate into value stocks, rotate into other sectors. Healthcare stocks even picking it up, but especially, IWM picking it up as well. And even this morning, you're seeing, natural rotation with IWM trading up 0.77%, yet SPY and QQQ down. So clearly this market doesn't want to sell everything. This market wants to sell one area, buy another. And money has been coming out of the AI stocks here for a few days, and maybe even a couple weeks here, you could probably argue now. And that is somewhat concerning. So just keep that in mind when you're coming in here and saying, oh, I'm going to buy the NVIDIA dip now. The trade has cooled a little bit. Trade is not over, and AI trade's not over. But at this point in time, I think, NVIDIA's had a hell of a year. It's still a little bit of profit taking in here. Does it finish the year strong? Maybe. But I think, coming in and buying NVIDIA today, I think it's just, I think you could be early.
Okay, going to go back just a real quick technicals on Dell here. Really nice move off that August low. And if you're interested in this thing, you think you missed a big move or you're looking to bring in a short here, I just look at these multiple lows at the 120 area. You consolidated, bumped to 130, came back down, traded in that area again. That also represents halfway back of this move. So I don't know. I don't think you need to rush out here at 124.05. Pre-market low comes in at 122.97. So if you're looking for more foul, but that's what I've been looking at over the next couple days. And, Dennis, you give us a lot of tips about trading and strategy, but the linguistic trick is a new one with the however term.
However word.
Yes. So could you start a linguistic earnings dictionary
Yeah.
or thesaurus so we could share with our crowd?
We had Josh starting to put that together, and I think that's something we're going to put together too, like linguistics. When you're listening to a conference call and they're talking, pretty good stuff, and then they say however, you do not hesitate. However is the worst word you could possibly say, and that's what was said. It's like, oh crap, here comes, it's like, my wife used to call, and I guess we're on our own network, but she used to work at BMO, and they called it, we're going to say it, the shit sandwich. Where when you got something bad to say to an employee, my wife was branch manager for a lot of years. When you've got something bad to say to an employee, you say something really good, then you say, however, this is what you could improve. And then you finish with something good. That's called the shit sandwich. Good, bad, good. But it's really, you just want to communicate the bad, but you want to communicate in a nice way. That's what they're trying to do. But when you have however, that is not the word you want to hear on a call ever. So however, never want to hear that word.
HPQ trading in the red, inline EPS, slight beat on sales, but the street, they don't like that guidance. Adjusted guidance comes in well below what the estimates were for the next quarter and for the fiscal year. So another tech stock trading deep in the red here. Wow, this one, the algos really got excited on this one, taking it down to 33.41 on the rebound here. More trouble in tech land.
I mean, when you're lowering guidance in HPQ, adjusted EPS for Q1 70 to 76 versus the 85 estimates, it just goes down. The stocks go down when you lower guidance, and they sometimes stay in the gutter for a few days. Unless the story is so hot that people just, like, okay, well, this quarter wasn't that great, but we know, it's coming. Usually guidance will put a damper on the stock for not, just for one day, but for a period of time. So I think being a hero and saying, yeah, we're going to bounce in HPQ. Yeah, we're going to bounce in Dell. It's going to come in here on day one. A lot of times it's prudent to wait a few days. Let it settle. Let it base. Let it figure it out. Because a lot of people are excited just to come in and buy the dip on Dell and HPQ right now. I think the dip will be bought on both these stocks eventually. But maybe we wait. Maybe we don't just try to be the hero. Because if you're trying to be the hero, even last night, me trying to be a hero on Dell, even before the conference call, thinking that they might say something good about the guidance, they didn't. I get hit on that. So I think just being patient maybe in this case, because the AI trade isn't hot right now either, folks. It's cooled off. So why, bounce the Dell? I know I went back to Dell, but HPQ, it's tech. It fits right into the whole, PC. We're all going to upgrade our PCs because they'll all be AI PCs. I mean, that whole story has cooled off a bit. There is support in here, though. We'll let Joel and Christian go on that. But at this point in time, I think I'm just going to be patient here on my buys on the tech stocks.
My technicals are pretty simple on this one. I draw a horizontal line where you had a series of 3 or 4 lows. That dip in the pre-market, well, if we don't hold this 35.5 area, pre-market low comes in at 33.41. But you did have buyers of interest here in early October, bump up to 38. Buyers of interest when it came back at the end of October up to the high of the move. So I'm looking for stability off the open at that area. If you're looking sub 35 and down to the $34 area, what's your take, Christian?
Yeah, I think Spinner said in the chat, just hardware not very good. Both Dell and HPQ, make a lot of computer hardware. So, yeah, I think I agree with you guys. Being patient, as Dennis said, I think that's the right call.
I mean, even to Best Buy yesterday and talking about, we had that big bounce. Remember what happened yesterday? The big bounce in the pre-market. The stock was down at 85, went almost flat. If you can show it on the chart, Joel. And then we talked about it and saying, this is not the dip to buy. No, they came in this because they can't help themselves. But it's not the dip to buy. And what happened? Another rug pull happened, when the real money came in. Yeah, it bounced towards the end of the day. But you got to look at what they're saying to a certain extent. When they're cutting guidance, a lot of times, sometimes stocks will sell off just because the bar is higher and there was nothing wrong with the report. Those are better dips to buy. When the stocks are cutting guidance, I mean, those usually aren't the dips to buy, unless we're in this rip-roaring bull market where they just can't stop. It hasn't been that, though. Like, people think it's been that, but it hasn't been this, like, oh, everything's just going up. There's pockets of rip-roaring bull market, but there's pockets of non-participation too. So it's got, you got to be selective with the buying here.
All right, a stock, boy, had a heck of a run. CrowdStrike off the outage, hits the high of the move, near the all-time high just a couple days ago. Well, they come out and they beat by 12 cents, 93 cents versus 81. Slight beat on the revenue here. They gave some guidance. It's kind of mixed guidance here, but I mean, with that kind of move that it had, it really had to blow things away, and that's not the street is very picky, and there you go. You get a little bit of a sell-off here in CrowdStrike, trading down 980.
This report not bad here, though. Like, to Joel's point here, sometimes they sell off because expectations are too high. Sometimes they sell off just because it was a crappy report. I don't think this was a crappy report at all. You know, the 93 versus 81, the guidance is right kind of in line with Q4, and 25 revenue is actually slightly above guidance. So this is the kind of dip that they probably do buy. So, you know, that's the difference, you know, and CrowdStrike dip to that point has already been bought. This got down to 341 last night. It's back up at 355. So just, you know the difference. Not all dips are created equal, which, you know, will bring me to Amgen in a second. You know, maybe it should have been the show on the show's about analyzing dips. And this dip I like better than the Best Buy dip from yesterday, and better than the Dell and the HPQ dip.
Yeah, my technicals on this one. Yeah, I'll go real quick. It's I just looking at this 360 area, and that's I don't know where to buy it, you know, just because that's a major run. But if I was scalping it and, you know, buying it off a pop, you had three lows right at this 160 area. So if somehow the bulls could get it back, hold that 360 area, go back up and test the high and move. But right now, resistance is sticking out more to me than support in CrowdStrike.
Yeah, it's interesting that the dip is being bought. Yeah, it's down 3-4. I see support around 338.50, but then I also see some upside resistance on this little on this move up here that we're seeing pre-market, right around 358.40. But yeah, a little bit of a disappointment there too. But as Dennis said, not that bad, but not great either.
Where do you come with that 358.41? Where do you call it? Because I'm looking at my 15-minute. Is that just from
He wants to know where he got that number.
Yeah.
Joel's a numbers guy. You throw a number out there that he doesn't understand, he wants clarification on your number. See, I'm not a numbers guy, so I just, take the simplistic approach, but he wants to know how you came up with 358 number.
358 is just volume at price level that I am looking at, which I can show you if you like.
Yeah.
All right, this should be sharing there.
I'll add that.
Yeah, so see the support down here is the 338. Again, this is short-term stuff. This is just based on last week's volume profile. So, here's your break into the value area, and 358.40 is really what I'm watching to the upside. But again, this is short-term support resistance. But
that's good though. I like it and get different ways to get numbers. So we kind of like this Christian Fromhertz numbers trade here. And I agree. I just think coming into 358, 360, we just bounced. Let's be honest. We just bounced 15 points in pre-market. So if you're coming in buying the dip now, you're a little bit late. The dip was bought 2 hours ago. Workday. Joel always does his joke, but we won't let him do his joke. He's trying to do his joke right now. He's trying to do it right now, and I just ruined it for him. But I was cutting him off. Yeah.
Don't do that.
I did it because you do it every single time, and I was bored with the joke. He always puts himself on mute because that's what they do on Workday on the commercial. So I knew what he's doing. I called him out on it right away. WDAY goes on mute in the background, then pretends to talk, but it's Workday. Now he just left. He's mad at me now. This is what happens. He gets mad at me.
I could tell you were interrupting.
I knew you were going to do it.
I knew you were going to do it. Interrupting more than usual. Okay. Workday, 189 versus 176. You got to like that. Sales 216 versus 213. You gotta like that. They gave some guidance here on subscription revenues. once again, I mean, not a bad report,
No.
but what do you
Yep.
got to do after you rally, 70, 80 points in a month?
Did they ever add this one to the S&P? Question. I don't remember.
I know you thought they were going to add it.
It's been
Yeah.
on the list to get added to the S&P forever. Does anyone know? I don't remember. I have the goldfish memory here. Did they ever add Workday to the S&P?
No, I don't think
I
so.
don't think so.
No.
So that's still on the list, and the stock has been coming up here now. So I think it is on the radar here for an S&P ad. It's coming into support here at 235 to 240. So as much as we said not all dips are created equal, this is one I kind of like in this 235 to 240 area. So whereas we come into this area here this morning, I think you're going to find support here in the next $3 to $4. I actually would be buying this dip.
Wow, pre-market low 35.65, and then what Dennis is looking at here, that's why he gave you a range here. At the end of the consolidation period in mid-November, he just kind of bounced around like 235, 240. Which way am I going to go? 235, 240. Then you bounced out, boom, right out. That's where the rally came down. Back in the gap fill area. I am with you on this one, Triple D.
Especially since the company is perked up and it's still on the additions list here. So we may not get it this year, but I think that addition's going to come here eventually. Makes me want to buy this dip at Workday.
Christian, any comments on Workday?
Next.
Yeah.
Not much for me. Sorry.
That's fine. We don't all have to comment on every stock. I like it when we don't. When we just keep bouncing around and moving around and power through. Lots of stocks to talk about here this morning. There's lots of earnings stocks. Let's talk something good. Ambarella up 21%. We found one because it's been an ugly day for tech, but we found one that actually had a pretty darn good report here. I'll give the numbers. I'm sitting here.
Sure,
11 cents versus 4 cents. Beat the estimates. Revenue beat big time here too. 82.65 million versus 79.03 million. They see Q4 revenue 76 to 80 million. Everything looking pretty good over at Ambarella. It even ran into the report, so the bar was higher, but it doesn't matter. When you report a good report, the stock goes up, period. Here we go. Stock trading higher. One issue, running into a lot of resistance from back in July of 2023.
July of 2023.
Yeah.
First, I'll just give you the pre-market high. Pre-market high, wow, is 87.87, and I'll just go back to Triple D's levels here. Wow, nothing there. 89.19 was a high in June, and then I don't know. I mean, if you're super bullish, super crazy, this may get to $90 today. March of 2023 had a high at 91.19, and I guess they're just not a GoPro company anymore. Remember that?
Wasn't Ambarella that always was making the parts for the GoPro, and then it was like linked at the hip when GoPro was so hot. Amba would pop, Amba would drop. It was all off GoPro. Isn't that funny? GoPro became irrelevant, but Amba became relevant. It's funny how that works.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I think that you guys are absolutely right with without this name going up in tech, I would almost call it like a tech wreck today. But Amba kind of saves the day, even though it's not a big name. Can I show the charts just for a second? If you could just turn my on.
Yeah, we're coming back.
Because I like when we have different methods to getting around the same point. I see 87 now. Again, you can't see the pre-market activity on my screen, but even if I go to those weekly chart here, I've got major resistance at 87. So that could be the nice bogey to trade against. So I would be kind of saying like clean slate if this can get over 87, 85, because again, you look at these. We're seeing a lot of these types of charts, by the way, where name made a high a couple of years ago back in 2021, base, and now trying to break the base. So I know this is a big move pre-market, and it's not a move that I want to chase either. But I think if we let this settle in for like a day and see if it can now begin to kind of break above this whole like couple year pattern, then I think there's something here. But again, sometimes people get discouraged, including myself, when I see a name jump this much pre-market. But you zoom out a little bit, and let me try to, sorry, the chart's really small there on the screen. But if you zoom out here, you could see that it's got a long base here, and maybe it could start doing what a lot of stocks are doing and
The
start
gap
to
and go.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, could
Yeah.
have the gap and go. It's a possibility for it.
Yeah, I'll agree with you on the resistance on that one. Let's move to the have and have-nots in the retail sector. Urban Outfitters trading up $5.60 here. They had a beat. Let's see, 130. I see the revenue of 136 versus 110. Not seeing what the EPS is, but nice move here, moving up sharply. Citigroup, Telsey, and Baird all upgrading their price targets on Urban. They must have sold a lot of pizzas in the quarter. There's Urban Outfitters trading up near 46 bucks.
I mean, it's the tale of two markets in retail as well, where obviously we talked about, the big, heavy department stores, the big stores not doing so well, lots of expenses. And they have Urban, smaller, mall-based retailer, but smaller stores. Again, they're still large stores, but it's not talking like the size of Macy's. So you can clearly see, it's like, and again, Urban's been in that same category as Abercrombie and Fitch, as American Eagle Outfitters, which has struggled a little bit as of late. But some of these stocks have actually turned it around. You're seeing selective consumer habits, and obviously with Ryan Craver on yesterday, we know off price has always done pretty well. But if you're operating, a little bit smaller store and you're not off price, it's, you don't have as much overhead. You don't have as much, as many expenses here. And I think that's why we've gravitated to stocks like Abercrombie and Fitch and Urban over the course of the last little while, and moving away from the big department stores like the Kohl's and the Macy's that sell everything. So it is the tale of two markets, continues to be in retail, and I don't think that changes anytime soon.
All right, we got a slew of economic data coming up here in just a couple minutes. This is going to be Christian's inaugural flight doing economic data with me. Sometimes with Triple D, depending on what the market action is here. But we got a lot of things. I'll read them off, and then if you guys have the previews in front of you, go ahead. GDP growth rate, second quarter estimate. Do we have any estimates?
These are all at 8:30. So coming at 8:30, you got, read them all off here, Joel.
GDP growth, initial jobless claims, and resale wholesale inventories. Now, the PCE, which is supposed to come out on the last day of the month, is actually coming out at 10 a.m. So have your head on a swivel at 10 a.m. But we got a host of economic data here in just about a minute and a half, or closer to 2 minutes. What are we looking for?
We're going to be in thin markets. So consider that, and I'm going to go trade these numbers to a certain extent, but the markets are thinner right now because of holiday trade. Like, people were asking, Aaron, where's AB? He's taking a couple of days off. It's around Thanksgiving. I mean, this is what happens during this period. You will be in holiday trade now through Friday. So obviously close tomorrow, half day Friday, but it's going to be, holiday trade. So throwing a bunch of things, and they're moving all this in because they don't want to give out the economic data on Friday. So they're moving everything up here, obviously. So that's why we're getting a plethora of data here. And then PCE at 10 o'clock, which we never see at 10 o'clock. That's going to be interesting too. So be ready at 10 a.m. as well. But we're going to see some movement here, folks, on these numbers.
Right. I rarely go to the 1 minute chart, but that's what you have up there in the S&Ps. We'll also be peeking in on the bond market. The TLT's trading up 44 cents. Has had a little bit of a rally over the last few days. The traders preparing their algorithms across the world. Let's see who has the fastest data feed. Coming up here just in a matter of moments. There is very little resistance. 38.75 was the old-time closing high. Yesterday's high and the Globex high from last night right near each other, 44 to 47. The old important number, all-time high, that was made a couple of weeks ago at 53 and a quarter. On the downside here, just looking at the pre-market low, I'm not looking for any really major downside action here until we take out that pre-market low. Numbers are hitting trading terminals around the world. Survey says they're slow.
Well, you've got jobless claims coming in 213 versus 215, so that's pretty much on the screws there. So that's not a big change. You've got GDP coming in also right on the screws. GDP 2.8 versus estimates 2.8. That's a lagging indicator. We don't need to worry about that. Personal consumption plus 3.5 versus estimates 3.7. So a little bit of a move there. Durable goods a little bit light, plus 0.2 versus estimates of plus 0.5. Let's see. Bonds are still rallying a little bit. They had a head start. They were up about 0.5%, now up 0.6%. And the dollar is fading a little bit too, which is now down a little bit more than 1/10. So those are the two main things that I look at, are the dollar and bonds. Joel, you want to add anything to what you're looking
I'll
at?
just say that that my buildup was absolutely worthless. That you just
Well, I think you're absolutely right. Like the 10 o'clock number, that's what I'm watching for today, which is the PCE, which they're moving. They're having a Black Friday sale on economic data today, and they're moving that till today rather than Friday.
Yeah, I mean the TLT moving up a little bit. I don't know if Dennis is catching any trading action here. Looking at the S&Ps, I gave you one number on the upside. That's going to be my main focus today. That old time closing high that was made in yesterday's session was 38.75. Now, you traded through it quite a bit in the pre-market, but the market's reaction was just like the number itself, completely in line. So that is a little bit of a disappointment. We will see what happens when that other number comes out, the PC at 10 o'clock, and then obviously tomorrow nothing, and then Friday we do have the markets open, folks. If you are out there, trading the options markets, just remember, they're going to really nick you on the decay for the markets being closed on Thursday,
So
and
we got
then
core
have a day on Friday.
PCE though at 8:30. So we got hit with 5 numbers at 8:30, and we got core PCE 2.1 versus 2.2, which is a little bit light. So we're going to get some other PCE number at 10 o'clock, because I'm confused here. So what do we get at 10 o'clock? We get
The core,
different PCE number.
Yeah, the core is always like people, for whatever reason, like that comes out first, but it's really the PCE price index. That used to be called the PCE deflator. That's the Fed's preferred gauge of inflation, even though everybody still looks at the CPI as being the most important. But that number, so they don't call it the deflator anymore. They changed that a couple months ago. It's now called the PCE price index. That number comes out at 10, and they're looking for the month over month, which is always what I pay attention to, is plus 0.2%. So, remember the Fed's goal is 2% annual. If that number comes in on the screws, you annualize that, and that's 2.4%. So, we'll see if we come in hotter or lower. But that's going to be interesting, because we're seeing things like I heard that coffee's at the highest level since 1977. So I don't think, the good thing is that's not going to be, I don't think that's in the PCE, as well as cocoa's been high. Eggs, there's another report about eggs this morning about how eggs are good for you, but I don't think eggs are in the report either. So hopefully we get a muted response. And luckily those things are not in the PCE.
Okay, breaking news. Spinner all over it here. He watches these small cap names, which I don't watch as much, but I've been watching this one the last couple of days. Unusual Machines here. We're going to UMAC. We are blasting off into orbit in the last few minutes at 8:30. PR drops. Donald Trump Jr. joining Unusual Machines as an advisor. So bang, when you get the president's son joining, the future president's son joining, a company here, never a bad thing. And if you go and look at the pre-market chart here, Joel, you'll see what I'm talking about here. Maybe we can bring it up here, because your chart is not showing all the action here. Pre-market prep should be showing the pre-market action.
Yeah, it is, Dennis. It is. Oh, that not the tick, but yeah,
it's up 52% here. I don't know why I'm not seeing it on that chart. Maybe the one on the bottom right. No, that doesn't work monthly.
I don't know. Is it halted? I can't.
No, it's trading. You got a
Huh.
trade station got a problem here with this one. That's not showing up. So
Maybe, yeah.
it is
Maybe
flying here right now. UMAC, unusual
yeah.
machines.
Christian, can you show that? Maybe I don't have that. Yeah, it's an Amex stock, right? So
There we go. Yeah, this thing's as you said, just
Maybe we can
jumped up
zoom
to,
in. Can we zoom in a little bit on your charts? We're gonna figure out Christian's gonna get us like a better, so when he's showing them here,
farther
let's see
away.
if
You want me to
here.
zoom out? No, I'm just kidding.
No,
Sorry, a little bit of jokes this morning. Yeah, it did on that announcement moved up to $9. I think this stock. Is that all-time highs for the stock?
Yeah, this stock hasn't been out
Oh,
here
it's a
that
newer
long.
stock.
yeah, it hasn't been out.
Yeah,
very
it's a
long.
newer one. So it came out in basically, I'm just going to grab when it came actually out. It was February. It looks like February 16th. So we've only been out here. And it's been doing a hell of a lot of nothing until a few days ago.
Yeah, I
Really
guess
started
no
to
one.
pick
Did
up.
you get the memo on this one? I didn't get the memo. This thing
No,
was
unfortunately, it was only
yeah.
Some
So
people
this is-
apparently got the memo because it's been moving up.
So this
I
is
don't know. Was
another
this a
drone.
rumor?
I don't know.
I don't think this is. There's just it. I'm not going to comment on this. Okay, it's 8:36 and it's a Wednesday, so it's time for a guest. A Wednesday with Wedbush guest, and let's do the intro. All right, let's bring on a managing director covering biotech over at Wedbush Securities, Laura Chico. Dr. Laura Chico, how you doing today? Okay,
We got you on mute, Laura, and right in the bottom corner. There you go. Now we go.
You would
That's
think
a
I'd
Workday
get this
check.
by now, but hey, good morning, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
All right, so what a sector to cover. And we're going to make you our biotech expert because these things are just absolutely wild. They move with, what's going on in Washington. We just saw some absolutely moves. Before we start to talk about individual issues here, let's just talk about, the political environment and perhaps, uphill battle for these companies over the next 4 years.
Yeah, change is the only constant, right? So when we kind of draw back the lens, I think there are a couple key drivers that are going to affect the sector. So things like capital markets activity. Do the companies have access to capital? We still see a ton of money coming into the sector. Follow-on activity, great. Over $9 billion raised this year just through pipes. That's not in the follow-on number. And we're starting to see IPO tick up a little bit. Other things that move the space are going to be catalysts, news flow, and still a steady string of events, even just into December. So I think that's another plus. Now, you mentioned the FDA, the policy backdrop. Obviously, some unknowns there, right? But I guess what I would say is that activity at FDA right now is still really robust. We're going to finish the year on a lower number of approvals than last year, but last year was well above the average, and we're still going to come out north of 40, which is amazing in terms of the pace of approvals that are happening. So I still think that we will be able to find a path forward. I think there's going to be some speed bumps, but this is going to be a stock picker's market in 25 for biotech.
What about RFK? Does he change anything? What? Obviously, some people concerned. Biotech had a little bit of sell-off when it was announced. It's bounced back, at least looking at the smaller biotech. What's RFK? What do you think about this?
I think there's going to be some pockets that he's obviously going to try to tackle. I think it's going to be more on the vaccine side. So if you're playing in the mid-cap space on the biotech side, as long as you're probably not in the vaccine area, I think it's going to be still more of the same. Now, I think another area of question is going to be orphan diseases. Does he do anything along those lines to change what we've seen there? My personal bias is that does not get touched. And there's obviously a ton of diseases that have a huge unmet need. And I think we've actually seen FDA make some great strides just in the past couple of years here in trying to find accelerated pathways for these companies. So hopefully that remains intact and that's still viable. But again, a little hard to understand, specifics on the policy side, but at least for right now, that's kind of what we're looking at.
Okay, let's just go right to the top choice here over at Wedbush. Your top pick this year on the Wedbush Best Ideas list, EWTX. Let me bring the chart up about that. Tell us about the company in 2024 and the prospects in 2025.
Well, this one is definitely, so we've only had one other pick on the best ideas list. So we're a little stingy in terms of how many we put on here. But Edgewise is a company focused on muscle targeted therapies. And they have a couple programs on skeletal muscle diseases like Duchenne muscular dystrophy, Becker muscular dystrophy. And then they also have a cardiac muscle program as well. And when you see the pop that the stock has had in the second half of this year, that is more of that cardiac program coming into the picture here. I had some great data back in August, and it's not over yet for these guys. So just into November, December, we still have 2 trials in Duchenne muscular dystrophy reading out. And then we also have data in Becker muscular dystrophy, probably in December. Then you roll forward into 25, the first quarter of 25, we get extended dosing data in that cardiac indication. And later in the second half of 25, even longer term data here. Now, the comps on the cardiac program are going to be names like Bristol Myers acquired Myocardia, and then Cytokinetics has a similar drug as well. So these are pretty big markets that they're going after just with the cardiac program. I think if some of these efforts in the Becker and the Duchenne program hit, that's just icing on the cake.
Is there any, and I know you mentioned them briefly, and we've seen this happen before, where a company is working on a drug would actually hack with some of the weight loss stock. Is there something that could come out good from another company that might be bad for Edgewise?
At this point, not really. And I think that's one of the kind of unknowns as we're heading into 25. They haven't talked a ton about the earlier stage pipeline yet, because a lot of the focus has been on the skeletal and the cardiac muscle programs. So they haven't really dipped too deeply into obesity at all yet. But I do wonder if this is a setting that they could start to play in. Do we start to see something come out of the pipeline? It makes a lot of sense just with the targeting that they're using right now, that they could kind of advance something there. So definitely watching in the early part of 25 to see if there's any more pipeline announcements that would kind of fit in that wheelhouse.
Okay, another company waiting on some pivotal data and TED still to come, I believe, in December for their lead program, VRDN-001. This one looks like it's had its struggles over the years since that IPO in 2014. Coming off the bottom of the page. What's positive about this one, Laura?
Yeah, this one, we really like this story here. And I know this is kind of, the stock chart doesn't really reflect it, unfortunately, but VRDN-01 is going after something called thyroid eye disease. And right now, the only other approved drug targeting this target is Tepezza from Amgen. And that drug is at about, call it a $2 billion annual run rate. Now, the benefit with Viridian's program is that you'll be able to administer this in a shorter dosing cycle. So that'd be great, fewer injections. They also have another follow-on next-gen program that they're working on, VRDN-03. And right now, Tepezza and 01 are going to be administered via IV infusion, but 03 is a subcutaneous pen format. So kind of think of those Ozempic shots that you can do at home. That would be what 03 is. So really excited about the opportunities they have here. They have an earlier stage pipeline, not really getting any credit there, but I think that starts to creep into the story more in 25.
Okay, let's move on to the next one, ATXS here, and this is Astria Therapeutics. Whew, you'll have to talk about that tumble that we had earlier in the month here. Final proof of concept data in HAE for Navabart has a competitor, Taquitos. Boy, I'm not doing good.
You got it, Joel. You got it.
Take it away, Laura.
Now let Laura talk, Joel. You're butchering it all. We're gonna let Laura talk here. You just give
Okay,
this ticker. She's gonna say the other stuff.
All right. Well, you'll see a theme in a lot of these picks where we have these companies coming up with new products, established competitors, and in targets that we know work. And I think that's one of the de-risking qualities that are associated with a lot of these picks. And Astria, same kind of thing. So hereditary angioedema is a very rare immunological condition where people unfortunately develop these random swelling attacks. And Takhzyro is something that they take. It's a shot every 2 weeks, and that is a preventative measure to keep those attacks at bay. You can imagine it gets pretty scary when it's an attack that's causing swelling in your throat and things like that. So the Astria drug, they're looking at a very similar approach as Takhzyro, but instead of every 2 weeks, this would be every 3 months and even possibly every 6 months. So data that we're getting later this, before the end of the year, that's going to help us better understand how viable is that every 6 month regimen. So you're talking about going from about 25 shots a year down to possibly 2. And even the every 3 month regimen, we think is pretty attractive because that would be every 4 months, 4 shots a year. This is a weird orphan condition in that there are approved therapies, but I think that the key here is a longer dosing interval. I think is definitely going to be appreciated by patients.
Laura, general question here. When you're talking small biotechs, a lot of times, some of these smaller companies, have a great team in place. They've got, the potential to get there, obviously, and there's huge upsides with some of these stocks. But talk about the other complication is that some of the smaller companies really struggle with financing the trials, like getting the money to do it. And a lot of times what you see is a smaller one, has a good trial. Then 2 days later, they do an offering because it's going to take more money to do the next trials. Talk about, some of these smaller companies and that hurdle, obviously, and maybe going forward, if the rates start coming down, obviously, if we have the Fed, cooperating here, maybe biotech starts to look a little bit more intriguing just because that financing may get cheaper.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, that's definitely one dynamic we've seen exacerbated more recently as we've seen rates come up. I think it's not even necessarily on the cost of capital, but just, when you're looking at the risk profile, when T-bills are paying, 5%, a risk-free rate, essentially, that's really challenging to say, let's go put money in biotech where you can kind of have pretty volatile outcomes. But I think, in terms of your just general question on financings, that's definitely one thing we kind of layer in there. It's an expensive adventure to get a drug approved. We're talking about kind of $1 billion often from start to finish. Yeah. And that's one reason why we do like these orphan programs. It's not that it's the high prices that they get charged when it makes it to market. It's that you have a very small population to go after. There's smaller trials that are necessary to get these approved. And I think it's a more homogenous population. So you're not having to run 6 phase 3 studies to capture everybody. You can do something very small and focused. And I think that's one thing that we definitely like. So there is still meaningful upside, even when you factor in those financings into your model.
Hey, Laura, thanks so much for being here today, and thank you for the individual picks. I've wrote these picks down, and
I write them down too.
Yeah, we'll definitely be watching them. Just back to the question that Joel mentioned earlier about the new administration coming in, and do you feel that the trade could be that biotech, and I know biotech is definitely an area that people look at for M&A, but do you think that this has more of a chance to outperform the bigger pharma companies as they may be more under that pressure that they may, the new administration might be regulating those companies? So I'm kind of looking at going long like the XBI, which is the all biotech and equally weighted, some of the smaller cap names in there. And then looking at like a short maybe in pharma and overall healthcare. Is that a theme that you see playing out?
Yeah, and I think some of the things you mentioned about pharma definitely stand out in terms of, does Trump and the administration follow a favored nations pricing scheme where there's going to be more pressure on pricing? And it feels like we've been talking about drug pricing forever, so that should be priced in at this point. But the people that are going to bear the brunt of that more is pharma rather than biotech. The one thing that's kind of happening outside of the policy and the pricing and all that is also kind of these revenue cliffs that pharma is going to have to deal with. You have a number of franchises and companies that are going to have short tails left on the revenue streams from some of these things. So where do they acquire new products to bring into the fold? That's often biotech. And so I think that makes for a good situation for the biotech companies. And I think just a general framework, the companies that we're going to be focusing on are probably going to be the ones that have some of that de-risking data in hand, have ample balance sheet coverage to provide long enough runway to get through those key inflection points. and then catalyst activity. It's really hard, I think, right now with investors focusing on near-term catalysts. You definitely want to find names that have a steadier lineup of readouts. I think that just makes it a little bit easier.
Gotcha. Thank you very much. The second question I have for you is, and you may not cover this group, but it's been such a hot group over the last year, is the obesity trade. Do you feel like we're kind of in the later innings with the obesity trade? We've seen names like Lilly and Novo Nordisk. They've started to kind of come in a little bit. They've lost their upside momentum. What stage do you think that the obesity trade is in? And do you like any picks in that group?
Yeah, we don't formally cover it, but I think what I would say is, I think there's still a lot of room here. And we saw just even yesterday, the administration was proposing to expand Medicare, Medicaid coverage to include these obesity products. And I think this is obviously outside of oncology, one of the biggest market opportunities for the biotech pharma space. In terms of kind of what's next or what's coming up, I think the focal point will be on more, how do we get folks to maintain weight loss? But then we're also hearing about things like muscle loss, bone mineral density, things like that. So I think you're going to be talking about other therapies that might offset some of those issues and kind of promote kind of longer term retention of that weight loss. I think those are going to be the themes that start to emerge. But in terms of kind of, do we have new GLP-1s coming out? That space is probably going to be hard. I think it's going to be tough to dethrone Lilly and Novo at this point, absent, expiry of exclusivity.
Okay,
Thank you.
Laura. Yeah, before we let you go, companies that are under pressure, former high flyers that just haven't met their expectations, sometimes may explore, some M&A, and we have an administration coming in that may be more favorable to that. Do you have any stocks that have been under pressure that maybe looking to partner up with somebody, or maybe looking as a potential buyout?
The one that stands out is probably Biogen. So that's going to be ticker BIIB. And it has been a tough year for this stock. We have had Chris Viehbacher come in. He's the former CEO of Sanofi. And he's done a really good job in terms of realigning the cost structure, which is great and was necessary. But I think the key missing piece at this point is, how do you get the revenue growth to restart? And there was a lot of focus on Leqembi, the drug that's launching in Alzheimer's right now. But this has been a really tough go in terms of getting traction with the drug. So this is definitely one name that stands out. They have the capacity to do up to $10 billion in M&A deals. And I think there's going to be increasing pressure for them to bring in something that can help turn the ship around here.
Dr. Laura Chico, Managing Director over at Wedbush Securities, covering the biotech sector very well. Laura, thanks for coming on today on this Wednesday, and we're going to get you back on the schedule again real soon, because really this is a very interesting sector, very volatile sector that we need an expert like yourself in. Thank you very much, and have a great Thanksgiving.
Thank you, guys. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thanks, Laura.
You too.
Creeper market here. It's just a creeper rally. We're
Yeah.
just one tick off that all-time closing high.
It's
not
quiet.
much to
It's been
say.
quiet here. While we're talking biotech, I want to talk Amgen from yesterday. So we talk about dips to buy, and there's certain dips that I do look at buying and certain dips that I don't. I talked about this on pre-market prep, that I was looking at this dip. The reason is I didn't think the data was that bad. They really crushed it. They were looking for 25% weight loss versus 20% weight loss. But when you give Amgen perspective here, Amgen was trading at 260 before they were even talking about weight loss drugs. So they obviously got the big pop, in the 300s and 340, because there was excitement built, around the potential for Amgen to be the number 3 player here. Well, it's a setback yesterday, but it's not over. The obesity story isn't over for Amgen here by any means. They're working on multiple drugs. This company, unlike, a lot of smaller biotech names like a BKTX, that won't need the financing that the other companies do. This company makes a lot of money. So if Amgen can, figure it out and get one of these other drugs eventually to market, they're going to have an easier path than even, say, like a Viking, where it's going to take a lot of financing to get there. So I actually went yesterday and I'm like looking at this, and I had sold some stock up at 320, and I'm like, I'm going to rebuy the stock that I sold because we're back down to a level where they're almost pricing in zero for the obesity portion of this. I mean, the stock makes $20 a share. It's supposed to make $20 a share next year. You're talking about a company trading 12, 13 times earnings, and they have that potential of still working on multiple obesity drugs here. So even though the setback was there yesterday, I think it was a buying opportunity. I bought at $260. I didn't get the low, but I got pretty close to it. 260.50 is what I ended up getting. I just had that 260 level, so I was like, I'll throw 50 cents above it, 260.50. I had that in my head. And then, it obviously had a nice rally yesterday. I actually bought some extra shares. I sold the shares for the extra shares that I bought for a trade. I bought shares on the way up. I was just day trading it a little bit yesterday too. So I made some money there too. But I'm holding that core position. So now I'm back to a full-size position in Amgen and lowering my cost basis too. I was in at like 290. I think my average cost base is like 275 here now. So I like this story still. I don't think the story is over. They're still working on weight loss drugs, multiple drugs here. I think that they still have the potential. And I think they're probably the likely number 3 player here eventually.
Christian.
Yes. Should we go through some names this morning to
let's do ticker time. 5 minutes ticker time here.
All right, I got a couple I got a couple large cap names, and I got a small cap name to talk about too. I want to start with this small company called Amazon. I'm joking, of course, but it's got a little theme here, Black Friday type theme that's going on here. But I have to say, I like the little technical move here. I don't know if Mr. Jeffrey Bezos was not his selling algo was off. Maybe he's off for the holidays. I don't know, but you got a nice little check back here. It actually dipped below. I have this trend line drawn, and you had like a little bit of a shakeout move, and the stock looked like it was heading back down, and very, very strong yesterday. And I see it up a little bit pre-market. Out of the big cap names, that's the one that I'm watching for today as a little bit of run up into the buy the rumor into the Black Friday sales numbers or shopping. So that's one I'm definitely watching. And I think you could trade this today versus 207 is the name. Any comments on this one, or should I go to the next one?
No, and I just quickly, I like Amazon here long term. Short term, I think you're getting a little bit of the Black Friday run here. So typically we see Amazon run into Black Friday. We're seeing that the last 3 days. Obviously, AI chips kickstarted a couple days ago. So we're talking about, chips going to compete with NVIDIA here. I mean, Amazon is just, what I've said before. And again, this is a large position in my long-term portfolio, my wife's long-term portfolio. I want to make it bigger. I talked about buying more at 200. I did not. Kind of forgot about it. But again, this is a trade that typically runs into Black Friday. So maybe you get a little seller exhaustion on Monday or Tuesday or something. Maybe that's when you scoop it up. I don't know if I'm chasing it here at 208 because it's been a big move down from 195, and I do think this is catalyst driven for Black Friday. But after maybe Monday or Tuesday, if you get a haircut back to the 200 area, that's where I'd strike.
If you're looking to sell this today, I have a great number for you. It's $2 away. It's the highest low that it ever made. Will fill the gap at 210.88. I'd be out there even at like 210.50. If you get a little pop off the open there, that's my resistance in Amazon. What else do you have for us, Christian?
Yeah, well, this is the same type of theme, a little bit more techie, and that's Shopify. I think that Shopify, you go back a little more than a week ago, had good earnings. I like this name. I think that it may be a little bit under-owned in terms of the institutions. So I don't think you're going to see like a huge amount of selling. I think this thing kind of hangs in here. It kind of went down to the 5-day moving average, but I'm actually thinking that this name could break higher above those previous highs from 115.40. Any comments on this one, or shall I go ahead?
Yeah, keep going. We're just going to fly through. So we'll interrupt you. Don't worry about this show. We interrupt people, so I won't let you get away from me. Give a couple more, and then we're going to take a couple from the chat. We're going to go a few minutes overtime here.
This is Docs. Again, going back to had a really strong earnings report. This is one that gapped all the way up from $42 to 60, kind of settled in here and like really gave back a lot of the move. And then bam, a big move yesterday.
Yes.
I think that this is enough. Like if you want to be in software, speaking of healthcare, like this is a software company that caters more to healthcare and does some work in there. So again, this is like one of those under the radar ways to kind of get a little bit of exposure to healthcare, but doing it more on the tech name. And then I've got one more to talk about, which saw a lot of option activity. We were just talking about that name that popped on who is it? Don Jr., who took a position as a drone name. These little aviation companies are really popular right now.
Yeah,
so again, huge move in this one. Yesterday, I'm bringing this one up because it saw about 29,000 of the January 8 strike calls trade yesterday. So I know it's a big move that this thing has gone from $3-4 all the way up to $7. I would watch. So a level to trade against at this point would be the $7, and maybe you can see a stretch going up to $9.50, considering the amount of option activity that this has been accumulating. And again, the 29,000, that's quite a bit of the January 8 strike calls.
That's a power 5 minutes from Christian Fromhertz on some picks here, and there's some good ones in there too. The chat is throwing out names. Just a quick UMAC update. The dip was bought here, went up to like $9, back down to under $6. That dip was quickly scooped up, and the stock is back up here at $7.85. Sometimes when you're trading these news stocks, and I've traded news stocks for 20 years, when you're trading these things, they get the pop, and then they get like the profit takers and profit takers and profit takers. And then what happens a lot of times, you get that second pop. So a lot of times, you ignore the first pop, don't chase it because the algos are all over that. But when you get that check back, that selling of people who are maybe in the position ahead of time, and they're just like getting out, that's when you strike here. So, I mean, if you look at, you can see the check back. It started to stop at 6, and you can see it start going down, and then obviously lifted up there again. So if you're trading news stocks, I don't usually chase the first pop. I wait for the check back, and then the consolidation, it starts to hook up, then you go. So, that's how I usually trade news stocks.
All right, and I will provide you guys with the disaster of the day. I'm sure Christian and Dennis will be trading this very actively here. Symbiotic shares are trading lower. It looks like the old Form 10K trick. Time to complete assessment of financial impacts of correcting an error related to system. Yeah, accounting. We all know accounting. $40 a couple days ago, down $12, just off the pre-market low at 25 even. I will just say, if you had been short in this thing, you've been waiting for some bad news to come in, there was a plethora of buyers at the $23 to $24 area back in October. So I will look at that as potential support in Symbiotic, the big loser of the day.
Couple other stocks here. We just want to fly through these here from the chat because we said it was ticker time. We only took one ticker from the chat here. Let's do 4 more. NNE, another one that's widely traded retail name here. Popped up big time, consolidated now, slowing down. I'm mixed on this one. I don't know if you guys want to jump in on the technicals here. I'm looking at it, seeing support here at 25. Below 25, I'd want to cut out. If you wanted to try it, you could here, but I'd stop myself out below 25.
Boom, 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 boom.
Nobody else likes it. One second, we move on.
Next.
Oklo, OKLO, similar stock, moving up here lately. Story cooling off. Now, again, you look at this and, you think about NVIDIA cooling off lately. Oklo cooling off a little bit here. I think you're at a critical level for Oklo. Double bottom last 2 days, 21.90, 21.95. So 5 cents. I'll call it double bottom, 21.90. I think as long as you're above 21.90, you're okay. Starts to breach through 21.90, I'd get out of the stock.
One more area to watch, as I see a couple folks in the chat mentioning about China names. Always look at what the local market did last night, guys. The reason why Bob is up and some of the others is because the Hang Seng was up 2.3% last night. The Shanghai was also up 1.7%. So you got a nice bid, and those names have been quiet. Maybe take a look at those names, but just be wary. A lot of them are have gapped up. So if you're long a couple of those names, you can take some profits and watch for them maybe to settle in. But we haven't seen really much out of China recently. But yeah, that's a big move for the Hang Seng, up 2.3% overnight.
And again, China, the hangover with Trump coming in, and I correctly was selling my Baba and Baidu 2 days after the election because I was worried about, the Trump. That doesn't go away here. So I still think China stays under pressure. I'm probably a seller of rallies in a lot of these stocks, even though I own a small position in Baba and Baidu.
All right, folks. Wow.
One more. Yeah, we're going overtime here. We promised ticker time. We get a day off tomorrow. We can go a little bit overtime. What
MSTR?
about Carvana? It's been a long time since we looked at Carvana. And CVNA just continues its comeback of the epic comeback, maybe the best comeback of all time. Stock all-time high, $376 back in August of 2021. Bottomed at $1, at $1. Like what everybody said it was. Oh, it wasn't $1. Maybe it wasn't $1. Bottomed out. I'm trying to grab $3. $3.55. Bottom at $3.55 a year, just over a year later. It has been an unbelievable run. This isn't a 1-bagger, 10-bagger. This is almost up 100 times from where it was, 80 times from where it was when it was $3.55. I mean, could the stock hit all-time highs? I'll pose the question to you in the chat and everyone. Can a stock go from $3.50 to $3? Could it go back to all-time highs?
It could.
It's possible.
I won't.
It's possible. Hey.
Yeah, I mean, you want to leave it open-ended? Wow. I'd have to say I'm afraid of heights, so I would say if it hung in here a couple more days, gave me a little bit of this kind of pattern, then I'd say, hey, buyers are actually stepping up to the even they stepped up at 240. So just after making the high of the move, just one low here in this area, I think you got too much risk. If I was super long term, what happened there? We lost Christian. I don't know, until it breaches 240. Still path the least resistance higher. So I guess Christian didn't want to finish the show.
He's
with
still
us.
there. I think he fell over. It sounded like the mic must have dropped or something. But okay, so no show tomorrow. Unfortunately, we all, even myself, gets the day off, the Thursday.
You okay, Christian?
I'm good. All set.
I thought you fell over. I was like, whoa.
I fell over, yes.
You got to hit that button on your neck there, What was that? It was commercial back in the day.
I've fallen and I can't get up.
Oh, for that. Oh, yeah, I have one of those.
Yeah, Joel has that. Joel has that button on his shirt.
Okay, we have someone asked about my shirt, if it was a Bruce Lee throwback. No, it is from the Turkey Trot in 2015. One of my worst athletic performances ever. On Friday, Skeleton Crew. AB is spending some time with his family. Christian's going to be spending his time with his family too, but Dennis and I will be here. And
so let's go on. Me and Joel will be here.
Yeah, we'll be here 8:15 and at 8. Well, we'll be here at 8 to give you your pre-market prep. And Money Mitch is going to join us here at 8:15 to come in and talk about some Black Friday plays. So, folks, what a great show. Thanks for joining us on Pre-Market Prep. Have a good Thanksgiving. Do you know how many years in a row the Lions have lost on Thanksgiving Day?
They're breaking that streak. How many years are they breaking that streak to tomorrow, though?
7.
They're breaking that streak tomorrow.
Okay. All right, everyone have a good.
There's not such thing as a sure bet, but I think that streak ends tomorrow.
A sure bet was Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson.
It really was, and that's why I tweeted it out and everything. As soon as I'll go on the rant for 1 second. As soon as they had the bigger gloves, Tyson was done because that took away his knockout punch, and there was no way he was going to match his stamina. They had to get the 10-ounce gloves and went to the 14-ounce gloves. The fight was over before it started.
Okay, everyone, be safe. We'll see you on Friday morning.
Happy Thanksgiving.